Completing the square. Completing the square is taking a quadratic and by adding or subtracting a constant, actually we have to do both add and subtract, I'll make that clear shortly, making it into a perfect square. So what do we mean by a perfect square in terms of a quadratic? Well, if you think about something like x plus 2 squared, if you expand that out, you get x squared plus 4x plus 4. So x squared plus 4x plus 4 is a perfect square because you can rewrite it as a square. Now clearly you couldn't do that if we had x squared plus 4x plus 3, but what you could do is write that as x squared plus 4x plus 4, take away 1, and then you can make this part into a perfect square. So that's what I mean up here when we have to do both, because you'll note that I've added 1 and taken away 1 in order to make part of the expression a perfect square. It is a useful tool which we will revisit later in the course, but for now we will work purely on the technique. Actually, that's not quite true. I'll probably look at a meaning of the completed square form as well when we look at the examples. To complete the square, write the quadratic in the format x squared plus bx plus c. Write down the basic format for the completed square, i.e. write down x in a bracket, leaving a bit of space, squared, add a constant, copying the constant from the original expression. Half the value of the coefficient b and put that in the bracket, being careful with the sign so we retain the sign. So if we have something like x squared plus 6x plus 1, what I'm saying there is that you write down x and squared and put the plus 1 out here, and then you're going to put plus 3 because that's half of this coefficient. Now clearly these two things aren't equal, but we can make them equal by bringing in another constant. We'll look at that in the examples. We take that value, that's half of b, square it and then subtract it from the end of the expression after c. In other words, the constant that I mentioned just here, that we'll look at in the examples, I will square this plus 3, which is 9, and then I'm going to take it away at the end. As I say, we'll look at that in the examples, and we'll look at what completed square form tells us about quadratic expressions.